Sales Analytics, measuring B2B email performance. Sales Analytics is how you prove outbound email works. If you've ever looked at your email dashboard and thought, these numbers look fine, but did we actually create pipeline? You're not alone. In 2025, inboxes are crowded, spam filters are stricter, and leadership is right to ask whether outbound email is worth the effort. The only way to answer that question confidently is with sales analytics that connects activity to outcomes. The problem is that most teams still report like marketers: opens, clicks, and total replies. Those metrics can be useful diagnostics, but they're not success metrics for SDRs, AEs, or an outsourced sales team measured on meetings and revenue. When we build reporting for clients at SalesHive, we orient everything around the downstream funnel: conversations, meetings, opportunities, and closed won. This matters whether you run outbound in-house or through a B2B sales agency, SDR agency, or cold email agency. If you can attribute meetings and opportunities back to the sequences and segments that generated them, you're effectively making decisions based on vibes. Analytics turns outbound from send and pray into a system you can scale, coach, and forecast. Start with benchmarks, but benchmark the right motion. Benchmarks help you calibrate expectations, but only if you compare apples to apples. Overall B2B email averages, which include marketing and nurture, sit around 20.8% opens and 3.2% click-through rate in 2025, which is a useful baseline for non-outbound programs. Cold outbound is a different game with different buyer intent, different lists, and different deliverability risk. For cold B2B email specifically, realistic 2025 benchmarks look like 27.7% opens, 5.1% replies, and about 1% meetings booked. That means good performance is often a small number of real conversations, not a flashy open rate. If your team is around those numbers, you're not failing. You're sitting near the middle of the bell curve. You'll also see different response rate definitions across vendors and reports, which is why your internal definitions matter. Some analyses place the average cold response rate around 8.5%, with many programs clustering between 1% and 5%, and the best targeted outreach reaching 15% plus when the ICP and message are tight. The fix is simple. Define your funnel metrics clearly, then track them consistently by motion, not globally. Build a KPI hierarchy that forces focus on pipeline. In outbound, we treat email metrics like a funnel with one rule: optimize from the bottom up. Opens and clicks are upstream signals. Positive replies, meetings, and opportunities are outcomes. When your dashboard ranks sequences and segments by positive reply rate and meeting booked rate first, the whole team starts writing and targeting differently because the scoreboard finally matches the job. Segmentation is the biggest lever most teams underuse. Segmented campaigns have been shown to generate up to 760% more revenue and 101% more clicks than non-segmented blasts, which is why we push clients to break outbound into smaller ICP buckets by industry, role, size, and trigger. The point isn't complexity for its own sake, it's clarity about which audiences respond to which angles. Personalization amplifies that relevance when it's grounded in real data. Hyper-personalized B2B emails can average 41.9% opens and 6.7% CTR, which is a dramatic improvement over generic messaging. Whether you're a sales development agency building sequences in-house or evaluating sales outsourcing, the analytics question stays the same. Which segment plus message combinations reliably produce interested replies and meetings? Instrument your stack so every result ties back to a sequence. If your email platform is an island, you'll never get to revenue truth. The minimum viable setup is to push key events, delivered, bounced, replied, meeting booked, into your CRM and tag them with campaign, sequence, and ICP segment identifiers. That's how you answer the only question that matters: which emails precede opportunities and closed-won deals, not just engagement. Deliverability belongs in the same reporting layer as performance because inbox placement sets a hard ceiling on everything else. If you don't track delivery rate, bounce rate, spam complaints, and domain health, you can improve copy while your sender reputation quietly decays. In practical terms, this is where good list building services, authentication hygiene, and sane volume controls protect your outbound engine. Finally, make reply sentiment non-optional. A raw reply rate can look strong while the campaign generates mostly negative responses, deferrals, or unsubscribe requests. That's why we recommend tracking positive, neutral, and negative replies separately. When your SDRs or your outsourced SDR team consistently tag sentiment and outcomes, you can measure what matters: positive reply rate, meeting conversion from positive replies, and opportunities created per sequence. If you can't trace a meeting and an opportunity back to a specific segment and sequence, you don't have a performance problem, you have an attribution problem. Report on sequences, not single emails, and review on a cadence. Outbound works in sequences, not one-offs. When teams judge performance on the first email, they underinvest in follow-up structure and overinvest in subject line tinkering. A better reporting view is sequence level: delivered rate, positive reply rate, meeting booked rate, and pipeline created, all broken down by ICP bucket and by rep. Weekly reviews are ideal for keeping the machine healthy, while monthly deep dives are where you make strategic changes. In the weekly view, you're looking for leading indicators like deliverability shifts, sudden reply rate drops in a segment, or a rep whose meeting conversion is falling. In the monthly view, you decide what to scale, what to fix, and what to kill based on meetings and opportunities, not on vanity metrics. This is also where multi-channel measurement starts to matter. Email alone can work, but when you pair it with LinkedIn outreach services and cold calling services, you typically get cleaner conversions because prospects recognize you across touches. If you're running an outbound sales agency motion or evaluating a cold calling agency, insist on reporting that shows outcomes by sequence and channel mix, not activity volume. Avoid the mistakes that make good dashboards lie. The most common mistake is treating open rate like a win condition. Opens are a diagnostic signal, and they're increasingly noisy. You can inflate opens with curiosity-driven subject lines that create zero sales conversations. The fix is to make positive reply rate and meeting booked rate the primary KPIs and use opens only to spot deliverability, timing, or sender name issues. Another preventable failure is lumping everyone into one giant campaign. Mixed lists blur the data, drag down relevance, and make it impossible to see which verticals or roles are actually responding. When segmentation and personalization are applied together, some programs report about 30% more opens and 50% more clicks than one-size-fits-all outreach, which is exactly why we recommend building separate sequences for each ICP slice and reporting them independently. The third big miss is letting email metrics stop at the sequencing tool. If you don't connect campaign and sequence IDs to CRM opportunities, you can't measure pipeline per segment or revenue per sequence, and you'll end up scaling what looks good rather than what sells. This is where solid RevOps hygiene pays off: consistent naming, required fields for source sequence, and clean meeting attribution. Use structured testing and AI without turning optimization into chaos. Most outbound teams test by constantly editing templates mid-flight, which guarantees you'll never know what caused the change. A better approach is cohort-based testing. Pick a defined audience, lock 2 variants, run until you have a few hundred sends per variant, then roll out the winner and document the learning. This turns optimization into a repeatable process instead of a weekly rewrite ritual. AI can widen the gap between average and top-tier performance, but only if your list quality and segmentation are already strong. Benchmarks comparing traditional versus AI-driven cold email often show legacy approaches around 12 to 18% opens and 1 to 3% replies, versus AI personalized campaigns around 30 to 40% opens and 8 to 12% replies. The operational takeaway is to measure AI the same way you measure everything else. Positive replies, meetings, and opportunities by segment, not cool-looking personalization. Clicks can be helpful, but don't over-index on them in cold outbound. Across B2B programs, CTR benchmarks often sit around 5.1%, with some industries like IT software reaching 6.3%. But many of the best cold emails win without links. In our experience, adding links is a strategic choice you test deliberately, because more clicks is not the same as more meetings. What to do next? A practical rollout plan for your team. Start by agreeing on a small KPI set your team will actually use. For cold outbound, that's typically delivery rate, positive reply rate, meeting booked rate, and opportunities created, reported by sequence and ICP segment. Then set a cadence. Weekly health checks for fast issues, deliverability, broken targeting, and monthly reviews for decisions, sequencing strategy, segmentation, testing roadmap. Next, tighten the data loop so attribution is automatic. Make sure every reply and meeting is tagged back to the originating sequence and segment in the CRM, and require sentiment tagging so reply rate can't hide low-quality responses. Once that foundation is in place, run one structured test per month and keep a simple playbook of what worked, where, and why. If you don't have the bandwidth or tooling to do this consistently, that's usually the point where teams evaluate sales outsourcing or an outsourced sales team for execution and measurement. The best cold calling companies and cold email agencies won't just promise activity. They'll show sequence-level reporting that ties to meetings and opportunities. At SalesHive, that's the standard we believe every outbound program should operate with, because analytics is what turns outbound into a predictable growth channel.